Hey Libra, how's it going? My name's Alex. I think the Oracle and I might have something interesting for you today. Do you read Greek? Can you read Greek? The first thing I got in my meditation for you was don't confuse Coptic with Greek. Now, Coptic is the Egyptian language, the ancient Egyptian language, but written using the Greek alphabet. So it's spoken Egyptian, but read in Greek. So this idea of don't confuse Coptic with Greek is maybe there's something you will see, or that you are seeing, which looks like something, but actually is something else. Because if you don't know how to either read Greek or speak Egyptian, you could see Coptic written down and think that it's the Greek language, think that those are Greek words you're reading or looking at when you're actually looking at Egyptian words. So there might be some appearance that is not what it seems. There could be some sort of, I don't know, this could be anything really. Maybe there's something that you can read but not hear. Maybe there's something you can see but not use your other senses with, or vice versa. And you might need to have more than one of your senses active to fully understand what this is. The appearance is not going to be enough to understand this thing. There has to be, you have to activate, your left and right brain hemispheres, your intuition and your logic. You have to see and hear, and I don't know, you have to employ more than one tool at your disposal to fully understand something and to avoid confusion. At least that's my interpretation. There could be any other things that come to your mind. Actually, I'd be interested if there are specific things that come to your mind, let me know. But don't confuse Coptic with Greek, apparently. And then I pulled an I Ching hexagram for you. I got hexagram 24, Fu, or turning back. With the changing line, that third line there is changing to brilliance injured, hexagram 36. Here we have an image of earth over thunder. This is like being able to proceed forward without obstruction. Now, the first thing that I think about when I see this hexagram is that there's one yang line and a whole bunch of yin lines. And this is the first line down here. So what this is the winter solstice, when the yang energy starts to become present again. The sun is staying longer in the sky now. The days are starting to get longer again. So this is the beginning of a new cycle. Imagine, I Ching hexagrams move from 1 to 6, from the bottom to the top is their process. So imagine one yang line at the bottom moving up to the top, and then when it gets to the top, it starts back down at the bottom, like a cycle. So when things reach their, when things reach their limit, they turn back to their origin. When things go to the extreme, they alternate to their opposite. And so there's this constant cycle. And right now, actually, I'm filming this just a couple of days after the winter solstice of 2024. You could be watching this whenever, though. And I was thinking about the solstice earlier before doing this reading. But yeah, we have here just a refreshing cycle, new energy, new enthusiasm, new inspiration has come up. A new cycle has started for you. Maybe there's something about the new year that's important, because this is why we celebrate the new year at this time in most cultures, because the sun is like reborn. It's achieving its fullness. It's beginning its process of going toward that summer solstice, and the days get longer and longer. There also might be something significant about the number 7, because there are 7 steps to a cycle. If there are 6 lines in the I Ching, then it moves 1 through 6, and then that 7th move is the completion and restarting of the cycle. Gurdjieff, a 19th and 20th century spiritual teacher, also talked about cycles occurring in sevens, of lots of important things occurring in sevens in the natural world and in the spiritual world, that everything happens in sevens, according to this guy. So there might be something important about 7 steps to something, or the number 7. Maybe something's going to happen in a week. I don't know. But in natural cycles, there generally are 7 discernible steps that you can kind of break it down into and examine. If you want to get into like a Cartesian way of breaking something up so that you can observe it properly, you can usually break something up pretty compellingly or pretty interestingly into 7 unique parts that you can look at separately and then bring them back together as a holistic, complete picture. But if you wanted to see something in a Cartesian manner, break something apart to get a better understanding of it, maybe you could try breaking it into 7 parts, and that might help guide your process of how to understand this thing that you're looking at. Maybe that'll give you some organizational tips. Use the number 7 somehow. I don't know. But there's this sense of just something, you returned to the origin of something and have begun something anew. And in some instances, this turning back, it could be like with our own behavior, where we kind of stray from our path, so to speak, where we kind of maybe spent some time doing something else that was, maybe we had an original goal, an original ambition. Maybe what I was thinking of was like the spiritual path to, enlightenment, or whatever that is for you. This sort of spiritual path that we're all on. We can get distracted from it for many, many reasons. Not all of them bad. Sometimes, like, we start a family and then have to, can't just meditate all day when you got to take care of kids. There's things like that. Maybe we had to have more responsibilities with something. Or, other times it is kind of negative, where we get lost in, other habits or vices or distractions or what have you. Whatever the case may be, you've realized that you got to go back to that origin, that original ambition you had, or that original, it doesn't even necessarily have to be an ambition, but this original state that you knew was good for you, was like the correct path for you. And you found it again, you realized it again, and you have like this renewed enthusiasm to bring it back into your life. Now we have a changing line here, that third line. It changes to brilliance injured if we made that yin line a yang line. Now this, to me, says that you've been repeating the same errors over and over and over again, and constantly turning back, constantly going back to the beginning of a cycle, and then repeating that cycle, but repeating it in the same way, instead of learning from the mistakes. Actually, it does indicate that you have been learning from these errors, from these mistakes, but that there is something preventing you from acting on that new knowledge. And so you keep repeating the error. And this could have to do with you changing your mind about something too often. Maybe you're vacillating or non-committal, and you're not dedicating to a certain path forward. And changing your mind about something can make it seem like you're not making the same error over and over again. Because you changed your mind when you turned back and started over, you changed your mind about it, but you made a mistake. So you turned back and started over, but you changed your mind about the situation again, but still made a mistake. I think if you look beyond the superficial aspects of changing your mind about this thing, you will see that the essence of that error is the same thing every time you've changed your mind. Maybe something requires more commitment or more dedication, and maybe there is like a single path through, and you got to stick to it. That's just one possible interpretation. That might not be for all of you. Another idea is that just there are habits that we have that make it difficult to, even though we've learned from our mistakes, makes it difficult to act on that knowledge, because there are some entrenched behaviors that we might be trying to break apart or dissolve and get over. So this constantly turning back to the origin and repeating the same mistakes is like forgivable. It's not like a huge offense because you are turning back to the origin every time you make the mistake. So that's a good thing. It means, that takes a bit of courage. It takes a good deal of like surrendering to the situation, acting appropriately in regards to the situation, returning back to that origin kind of, that like absolves you of the fault of repeating the errors, because you're not like going to the extreme and going beyond the extreme. When you repeat the error, you go back and, okay, let's start over at square one and try to retrace our steps and find out what went wrong. So that is a good thing, that you keep turning back. But to repeat the same errors over and over again, it gets dangerous. It gets like, pointless, and it can inculcate a sense of defeat and exasperation. So this time, now that you have that renewed enthusiasm and vigor and inspiration and energy to restart this cycle again, it's time to really restart it in a brand new way. Really just buckle down and admit to yourself that you have learned from that error and do something truly new this time. And commit to that. And apparently you know what it is. This hexagram kind of indicates that you know what it is, because if this yang line was at the top here, that's the bad situation. That's the situation that has gotten to its worst point. That sort of darkest before the dawn thing. But then when that line goes back to the bottom here, like you have here, well, now it's the dawn. The darkest part is over. So there was something recently, might not have been very recently, but recently enough to be significant for you, that was very dark and difficult, and that chapter's over and the dawn is here now, which indicates you have learned whatever this error is, and you know how to carry on. You just have to, there's something in you that you need to like just break that last bit of resistance that's within yourself. And there's no indication that you won't. I think you could very easily succeed at this. But we're going to pull some cards for you now and develop this reading further and see what we can find out for you. So I'm going to spin a coin on this piece of wood here. It's got 24 little symbols on it. These are 24 different aspects of reality. The oracle will have us focus on one of these aspects of life or reality, and we'll pull some cards about it. So what does Libra need to know? The alchemical symbol for water is what it landed on. Coptic with Greek, water, turning back. Okay. The alchemical symbol for water. So if that means anything to you right off the bat, let those associations plant some seeds in your mind. But other than that, we have the material element of water, which is pretty obvious to most of us. And we also have the more spiritual aspect of water, which would be associated with emotions. Flowing water is flowing emotions. Frozen water, like snow and ice, is something that's kind of stuck and unprocessed. The alchemical symbol for water, it's just an upside down triangle, if that means anything. It's a more feminine downward force, and it is the basic nutrient of life, physical life. Turning back the cycles, there's the hydrologic cycle. Maybe there's something about the evaporation and raining of water and collecting in groundwater and rivers and lakes and evaporating again. As the sun rises here, this dawn here, then we have the beginning processes of the evaporation of water and the collection of it in the sky in the form of clouds before it then rains again and the cycle begins again. So here we might have an indication of some emotions that you're bringing light to and airing out, making them lighter and easier to handle. Some emotions that you're like getting over, using the light of consciousness and spirit to bring light to the way you feel. And using that to move forward. Okay, here we have the devil, came out in reverse. I normally don't read reversals, but if they fall out like that, I will. So this one fell out in reverse. So yeah, I do get the sense that like you finally, you know what the error is that you've been repeating, and you're breaking free of it. And it may have been an emotional attachment that you've had, or, you know, all emotions can be addictive, even negative ones. People can become addicted to feeling sad, addicted to feeling angry. We become accustomed to the way we feel. And if we don't notice it and we just feel it again and again and again and again, we become very used to it and accustomed to it. And it becomes comfortable for us. And then when things change in our life and maybe we don't feel that emotion anymore, it feels uncomfortable because it's not usual for us. The emotion changes, and you know, maybe I liked my sadness. It was who I am. I identified with it. Maybe I was a melancholy person or a very angry person, and I identified as that and made it part of my personality. And then, you know, over time, we can change. And when that emotion then kind of becomes weaker or less, then suddenly, if I was super identified with it, and now it's weaker or going away, then it kind of might feel like my identification and my ego is also dissolving and going away with it. And that can be an error that we repeat over and over again, where there's a situation, let's say I was addicted to anger. There's a situation that arose that in the past would make me angry. In the present, it doesn't. But because I'm used to that type of situation making me angry, I might allow myself to feel angry, even though I wasn't going to. And maybe something like this has happened, and you've realized it, and you're breaking free from it now. You're just like, oh, that was it. There's this emotional issue. I've put the light of consciousness on it. It evaporated it. I don't need to make that error anymore. Seems like a pretty straightforward interpretation to me. I'm going to pull some more cards for you, at least one other. We'll see what happens, what gets stuck in my hand or falls out. So the devil in reverse, the alchemical symbol of water, turning back. Don't confuse Coptic with Greek. Let's see here, the devil in reverse on water. This one I squeezed. Adversus, opposition. That's interesting because the Hebraic word shaitan, or Satan, which we associate with the devil, means adversary. And here we have the term adversus in Latin. So here we have this lion who has two spears coming toward him, if you see, at the top and the bottom. He's kind of between a spear and a sharp place. And he's probably not going to walk away from this one. Now, possibly you feel like you're stuck in a situation, but it could also be that you are finding a new strength within yourself. Okay, this is interesting. I just got... so there's a statue in Rome called... I think it's a statue of Teresa of Avila. And when I see spears with very large triangular heads, I oftentimes think of this statue of Teresa of Avila, who is in this state of like just ecstatic trance, and she's in the arms of an archangel, and I think it's the Archangel Raphael, but I could be mistaken. Now the statue, I believe, is called the Ecstasy of Teresa in Rome. And so if you want to look up that statue and find out whether it's Raphael or some other archangel. But anyway, the archangel is holding an arrow, or like a spear, I think it's an arrow, and he's like going to penetrate her heart. This is a spiritual symbol for ecstatic states brought on by spiritual powers. The sort of love, the divine love that penetrates our hearts and purifies us in a catharsis. When I see this, the lion to me is like strength and splendor, that like in bringing your light of consciousness to this emotional repetition, you are bringing a spiritual power and bringing strength out of yourself, or you're finding that strength, or you're finding like this inner lion that you're breathing life into. You know, in this case, I don't think the spears are threatening. For some reason, the spears seem like a positive thing, like in that statue. Like it's just your sharp spiritual consciousness that is bringing out an inner strength with you. And that's, you know, these cards are similar. You know, adversus and the devil, adversary, opposition. But adversity gives us strength in life. It can bring wisdom if we experience adversity. You know, nothing worth doing is easy. And if you're doing something really, really well, you're bound to, unfortunately, it seems you're bound to attract enemies to yourself. You know, the lion is also a solar symbol. It is like the solar symbol. You know, Leo, the lion, and the planetary symbolism of the sun. And on the tree of life, the solar sphere, or the Christ sphere, the messianic central sphere, the ideal human sphere, is connected to the sphere of Mercury through the path of the devil. So there is something with your spiritual awareness and your intellectual awareness that is being liberated here, that is being brought together. And this spiritual and intellectual light that you have, that is just has this, giving you this sharp consciousness, is helping you to overcome some sort of emotional difficulty or some sort of emotional, like I get this emotional epiphany, like you're having an epiphany about something you've been feeling and you're overcoming it, or you have overcome it, and now you can move forward in your new cycle. Yeah. You have like a beatified mind. You know, the beatification of the mind can be a very important process in spiritual awakening. The beatific vision, as it would be called by Dante Alighieri, the guy who wrote the Divine Comedy. The Divine Comedy is about the beatification of his mind, and how that like light of divine wisdom purified his perceptions of reality and brought him to heaven, essentially, right? That's, the book ends in Paradiso, in heaven. So maybe there are other mystics like Jacob Boehme, Nicholas of Cusa, and Johann Valentin Andrei, who discuss the beatification of the mind, or the beatific vision. For some reason that's sticking into me, this Tifereth and Hod, or the solar sphere and the sphere of Mercury being brought together by the path of the devil in tarot. There's some spiritualization of your thoughts occurring that are helping you overcome and control your emotional nature and use it creatively. Ooh, I just got that. Like imagine the warm sun on water and it just brings life, you know, it allows lilies to grow on the pond, right? Or lotuses, you know. All right, one last thing. I'm going to pull a token for you. What does Libra need to know? We have the astrological symbol for Taurus and the number 2. Interesting. Taurus. So there is something very solid and steady that has come into your life. So yeah, I think this, maybe there's a very stubborn energy that you're dealing with, a very stubborn opposition, a very stubborn adversary, that this time you will overcome. If it's been the same stubborn adversary every time you've restarted this cycle, this time it'll be different. This time you'll see it for what it is and you'll overcome it. And it'll just be like, oh, how come I didn't see that before, do that before? Like, oh my goodness. And you'll find it easy to overcome, because you'll see that it's like, yeah, he's quite a friendly little adversary, actually. It wasn't that big of a problem. This could also be that there's someone very, very dependable in your life. Or you've discovered something very, very dependable. Maybe a spiritual practice or something that is very solid and assured and will help get you through this next cycle. And this time that you repeat this cycle will hopefully and very likely be the last time, and you'll get through it to something new now, but it might take you longer, which is fine. There's, like, who cares? Because you're gonna go through it at this pace that's very strong, it's very firm, it's very self-assured, and I just got the, that quote, slow is smooth and smooth is fast, right? So don't rush whatever it is that you're doing. Just the pace that it happens is fine, because again, this number 7 with natural cycles can't be rushed. A tree grows when a tree grows. You can't make it grow faster. You know what I mean? So I'm getting this sense that this cycle is natural. You're meant to be here. The only unnatural thing about it was the past mistakes you're making, but you've learned from them. So you're going to break all those chains, and all those obstructions and all those adversities are gone now. Maybe one of the past mistakes you were making was trying to rush things. And, you know, this coming out on the symbol of water, it's like a water buffalo maybe, right? I just got that idea of water buffalo. And water buffalo are extremely dependable workhorses. Well, they're obviously not workhorses, they're oxen. But this water buffalo, this oxen, can pull a cart forever, and it can pull a lot of stuff, and it's very, very useful. They're very, very helpful, very, very dependable. They're so important to civilization that many cultures around the world still employ water buffalo to do their agricultural and industrial labor, especially in the Indian subcontinent. People today still use these animals because they're just so dependable, and they can get you through tough terrain that a tractor would get stuck in. So yeah, you have this new way that's actually an ancient way, that's like the best way, and you finally realize, like, oh, you know, of course things in life progress and change, and there is progress and evolution and change in our existence, but there are also things, a precious few things, traditional things, that don't necessarily need to change at all because they just work. And I think you might have found one of those things that is like helping you in this spiritual sense, or this emotional sense, this psychological sense, that helped to beatify, to spiritualize your thoughts. And you're like, oh, I didn't have to resist this tradition. This tradition, I see its value now. I see why it's a tradition, because it works. So that might be some of you, is like accepting a tradition for what it is. An ancient solution to an ancient problem that just works. And if you get rid of that tradition, that ancient problem comes back. And some traditions work so well and for so long that we actually forgot what the original problem was, because the tradition kind of just wiped out that problem, like, globally. And then we think, oh, this tradition is very stifling. This tradition is holding me back. This tradition doesn't belong in the modern world. All of these thoughts, and then we say, let's eliminate this tradition. It seems oppressive. I don't like it. This isn't good. And then we do. And then suddenly, these problems that we didn't have before are cropping up. And it's like, where do these problems suddenly come from? And we make all these errors and things, and these problems come up. And then one day we realize, oh, that tradition that I thought was oppressive and stifling was actually the solution to this problem. If I reapply that tradition, all these problems that came up will go away again. And so you have to ask yourself, what is more important? You know, getting rid of this tradition and being progressive, or getting rid of these problems and upholding the tradition? So you have to make that choice. I don't know what's right for you. I would say upholding the tradition is correct, but of course there are some traditions that we don't need today, obviously, but there are some that we do. So you need to use your discernment here. But I think there is at least part of this tradition that you can reapply, and it will carry you through this cycle and will prevent you from making that same error again. I think that's where the Oracle and I are going to leave it for today. Libra, it was great seeing you. I appreciate when you hang out with me. I wish you all the best, and I'll see you next time. Thanks.